Emily Grace was just 12 years old, but there was something incredibly special about her. In a small town in Texas, where life moved slow and hard times were felt in every corner, Emily carried a light that no one else quite understood. While most kids her age were wrapped up in trends and selfies, Emily was drawn to something far more powerful: music. Not just any music, but songs that spoke of love, hope, and her unwavering faith in Jesus. She said melodies came to her during her prayers, as if heaven whispered them into her heart. At home, things were tough. Her parents, Mark and Laura, were struggling to keep things together. The weight of unpaid bills, missed opportunities, and fading dreams pressed heavily on them. The laughter that once filled their home had grown faint. Even their faith, which used to guide them, felt distant. But Emily saw everything. She felt their sadness, their fear, and their silence. One evening, as they sat in their worn-out living room, trying to pretend everything was okay, Emily nestled between them on the couch. The glow of the old lamp cast a golden hue over her face as she gently said, "I'm going to sing for him, and for you. And everything's going to be okay." Her words, so simple yet filled with purpose, caught them off guard. They smiled at her, not fully understanding the depth of what she meant. To them, it sounded like a child's way of bringing comfort. What they didn't know was that Emily had already taken a big step. She had signed up for the town's annual Gospel Talent Night. It was her secret gift, her way of showing love and trying to heal something far bigger than herself. She believed that her song could touch hearts, especially the hearts of her parents. In her young mind, singing to Jesus wasn't just about notes and words, it was a way to bring light back into her home. Her faith was pure, and her intention was full of love. Emily wasn't chasing applause. She was chasing healing. And while her parents thought it was just another sweet moment, it was the beginning of something that would change everything. In the noisy cafeteria of her small-town school, where laughter echoed off the tiled walls and kids rehearsed their dance routines and comedy skits, Emily sat alone at the corner table, humming softly to herself. Her notebook was open, filled with handwritten lyrics and little hearts drawn beside verses that meant the most to her. While other students goofed around and craved attention, Emily stayed quiet. Her voice wasn't booming or show-stopping, but it carried something deeper: soul. There was raw emotion behind every word she sang, and her eyes always shimmered with something most adults struggled to find: purpose. Her music teacher noticed. After hearing her rehearsals, she gently asked Emily what inspired her to choose such a soulful song for the Gospel Talent Show. Emily looked up and said quietly, "I just want them to feel what I feel when I sing. I want my parents to believe again." It wasn't about winning. It wasn't even about the audience. It was about healing something broken at home. Emily believed, with all her heart, that if she sang with enough love and truth, maybe, just maybe, it could light a spark in her parents again. But Emily was hiding something no one else could see. For months, she had been experiencing sharp chest pain. It started as a flutter, a tightness during PE class, then grew into something deeper and more constant. Her mother had asked about it once, and Emily brushed it off with a smile. She didn't want to worry them. There had already been too much stress in their lives. Doctors meant questions, delays, maybe even canceling her performance. And Emily couldn't risk that. She confided only in her best friend during lunch one day. "I know something's wrong," she whispered, "but this performance matters more. It's for something bigger than me." Her friend begged her to say something, to tell someone. But Emily just shook her head, smiled bravely, and tucked a lock of hair behind her ear. Her heart might have been weak, but her spirit was unshakable. No one could have guessed that this tiny girl, quietly singing in a school cafeteria, was carrying the kind of courage that could move mountains. The night had finally arrived, the night Emily had waited for, prayed for, and poured her heart into. The school auditorium was packed, buzzing with excitement. Families filled the rows, camera phones in hand, as children waited their turn to shine. Backstage, Emily stood quietly in her white dress, her hands trembling slightly. She glanced at the worn bracelet around her wrist, the one her mom gave her when she was 5, and whispered a silent prayer, "Let them feel your love." When her name was called, a hush swept over the room. The spotlight bathed her in soft gold as she stepped onto the stage, looking much smaller than she had moments before. Her parents sat near the front, their expressions caught somewhere between pride and worry. They didn't know about the chest pain. They didn't know how much this moment meant to her. But they could feel something deeper stirring as she took the microphone in her hands. She began to sing, "I Can Only Imagine," her voice delicate and unsure at first. But with each note, something awakened inside her. Her tone grew stronger, more confident, until it filled the room with a presence so pure, so full of emotion, that even the fidgeting stopped. The room fell into a kind of reverent stillness. Every word felt like a prayer being carried upward, every note like a soft kiss to heaven. Her parents watched, tears spilling down their cheeks as they held hands, overwhelmed by the sound of their daughter's soul reaching out to something greater. For a brief, breathtaking moment, it felt like the room had vanished, like only Emily and her song existed. Then came the final chorus, "Will I sing hallelujah?" And Emily's voice wavered. Her expression shifted, her lips parted as if to sing once more, but no sound came. She gasped gently, took one tiny step forward, then crumpled to the stage floor. A scream pierced the silence. Chairs scraped back. People rushed toward her. Her parents stood frozen, then sprinted to her side as teachers and staff surrounded her. The music had stopped. The room had changed. What was moments ago a concert, had become a scene of shock and heartbreak. Emily's song had ended, but something far greater had just begun. The hospital waiting room was eerily quiet in the early morning hours, the kind of silence that feels thick with sorrow. Mark and Laura sat side by side, their faces pale, their eyes swollen from hours of crying. Just hours ago, their little girl was standing in a spotlight, singing like an angel. Now, they were holding her lifeless hands, still warm with the echo of her final song. The doctors had tried everything, but it wasn't enough. Emily's heart, so full of love, faith, and music, had silently given out due to a congenital defect no one ever knew she had. The weight of grief was crushing. There were no words left between them, only silent tears and the unbearable ache of a future without Emily. Then, just as the sun's first light crept through the hospital windows, a young nurse walked in. Her eyes were red from crying, but there was something else in her expression, something urgent, almost electric. "You should see this," she whispered, holding out her phone. On the screen was a video. Someone in the audience had recorded Emily's performance. It had been uploaded just hours earlier, and had already gone viral. Millions of people were watching. Commenting. Sharing. Crying. The footage showed Emily glowing under the stage lights, singing with such passion and innocence that it pierced hearts around the world. Messages poured in from every corner of the internet. A father in Michigan wrote that he hadn't prayed in years, but Emily's voice made him fall to his knees. A woman in recovery from addiction said she hadn't cried in a decade, until she heard the purity in Emily's song. Couples who were separated reconnected. Children asked their parents to hug them tighter that night. Something in Emily's voice, in her presence, had touched a global nerve. Mark and Laura stared at the screen in disbelief. Their little girl, so humble, so gentle, was now a voice that reached the world. Even in death, she was doing what she set out to do, helping people believe again. The silence of the hospital was still there, but it wasn't empty anymore. It was filled with meaning. Emily's song hadn't ended after all. It had just begun a new verse, one the world would never forget. The wooden pews of the small community church, once half empty and echoing with silence, were now filled wall to wall every Sunday. Faces that hadn't been seen in years had returned, some curious, others searching, but all touched by something they couldn't quite explain. At the front stood Mark and Laura, stronger than anyone expected, though the sorrow in their eyes would never fully leave. They held hands, standing before the congregation as their daughter's voice gently filled the room from the speakers overhead. "Emily didn't just sing for us," Laura said, her voice trembling but clear. "She reminded us to believe again. She reminded us what faith feels like." The crowd sat in reverent stillness, many wiping tears from their eyes. Behind Laura, a banner gently swayed, the Emily Grace Foundation. What began as a way to honor their daughter's memory had become a lifeline for others. The foundation now funded heart screenings for children in rural areas and offered music therapy programs in schools and hospitals. It was Emily's dream, quietly spoken, now fully alive. Children sang in church again. Families prayed together again. And every Sunday, Emily's recording played softly at the end of the service. Her rendition of "I Can Only Imagine" had become more than a song, it was a sacred moment that brought the whole town to stillness. As her angelic voice rang out, "Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel?" people didn't just listen. They felt it. People wept. People smiled. Some closed their eyes and swayed gently with the music. And more than once, someone could be heard whispering, "She's still singing. Just higher now." Though Emily was gone from this world, her voice, her heart, and her faith lived on, echoing in the lives she had touched and the love she had awakened. She had once said her song was for something bigger than herself. She was right. Her voice had become a beacon, not just for her parents, but for anyone who had forgotten how to believe. In a world often filled with noise, Emily had become a melody that would never fade.